Hey guys, tonight we shuffle through torch-lit alleyways toward the clang of a brass handbell, because the town watch is rounding up spectators for a midnight session at the public stocks. Yes, the wooden contraption that turns mischief into a tourist attraction. You probably won't survive this wooden neck hug without at least a bruised ego, much less keep your dignity when goats start nibbling your shoelaces. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Don't forget to post your location and local time, so we can see if you're tuning in from a calm suburb or a cobblestone square. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge across slick stones, lanterns hissing as cold mist snakes around ankles. In front of the Guildhall, spotlights of torches reveal a hulking oak frame. The stocks, two curved boards clamped together like a disgruntled sandwich, three crescent holes ready to swallow hands and head. Mainstream historical fact. By the late 13th century, English law required every village to keep stocks well set in a public place, so petty criminals could be restrained where neighbors might stroll by with rye bread, moral judgment or both. Tonight's guest of dishonor is a miller who shaved a few ounces off his flour bags. Impressive sleight of hand until auditors noticed villagers baking half-height loaves. The beadle snaps the top board down. Iron hasps clack shut. A collective sigh ripples through the crowd, half relief, half anticipation. Quirky tidbit. Some parishes scheduled stock time to coincide with market day, effectively turning punishment into free street theatre and boosting local cheese sales. You edge closer, inhaling tarry torch smoke and cider breath from the tanner beside you. The miller's cap has slipped, damp hair mats over forehead. His nose twitches at every jeer, but he still mutters jokes about raising grain in new ways. Gallows humor in miniature. Light joke floats from your lips. You whisper to a passerby that this qualifies as a medieval spa full-body exfoliation by rotten vegetable. The passerby snorts, nearly spills ale, and offers you a turnip to throw. You decline, citing wrist strain. Self-care matters even in 1347. As minutes slouch into an hour, spectators rotate like planets around a fixed sun. Children toss pebbles, wives wag fingers, and one old mason unexpectedly hands the miller a mug of water, tiny balm amid scorn. Historians still argue whether public shaming genuinely reformed behavior or simply satisfied collective irritation. Court rolls show repeat offenders were common, yet sermons praised stocks as God's wooden tutor. Evidence suggests the practice balanced deterrence with weekend entertainment, though reformers by the 17th century labelled it outdated. A stray dog plants itself near the miller's feet, tail wagging in hopes of pastry crumbs. Instead, someone flings a soft cheese. It bounces off oak frame, leaving smear scented of goat. The dog scores dinner. The miller's dignity manifests as a resigned grin. Embrace the lactose, endure the lesson. A church warden strikes the curfew bell. Echoes ricochet off shuttered shops. Regulations forbid stock sessions past the second bell, ostensibly to discourage night brawls, though cynics claim it simply spares constables from cold bones. Beadle unlocks the hasps. Top board creaks open, releasing prisoners' limbs like stiff marionette strings. The miller stands slowly, shoulders stinging. Folk murmur, some disappointed. The show ends without vegetable encore. He bows awkwardly, thanks the mason for water, and trudges home, shoes squelching through cabbage leaves. You feel odd twinge of empathy. Stocks humiliate but rarely maim. Tonight's insane punishment trades blood for bruised pride and sticky hair. As the crowd disperses, you linger, running fingers along oak grain. Splinters catch skin, proof of many necks before yours. The air grows still, torches gutter. You imagine earlier offenders, the town gossip, the chronic late-night baker, maybe even a scribe who recorded songs too bawdy for Lent, all confined here, forced into face-to-face conversation with anyone carrying a tomato. Stocks become social equalizer, noble or common, once clamped, all share same splinter therapy. You picture yourself locked in, neck heavy, arms numb. The chill seeps through cloak. A nearby gutter drips thin line of water that finds its way between boards, promising cold drip torture by gravity's slow kindness. Suddenly your pillow at home sounds luxurious. Stepping back, you make mental note. Tomorrow's marketplace chatter will dissect tonight's show. Who hurled dairy, who showed mercy, and whether the miller's flour might weigh true again. Punishment here bleeds into community narrative, a living scroll of moral footnotes. You walk past inn, where candles flick behind leaded panes. Laughter leaks out, thick and warm compared to courtyard's ghost. Maybe the miller will find a chair there, drink away cheese smear. Maybe not. Either way, stocks will wait, patient as iron hinges, for next offender to teach humility, recycle vegetables and entertain townsfolk who pretend they came to learn virtue. Back in your chamber, you peel off cloak still scented of torch smoke. Palms rub splinter ghost from fingertips. You jot diary line. Stock's wooden tutor, public theatre. Bruises fade faster than gossip. Candlelight softens, heartbeat steadies. Creak of oak echoes in ears. Rhythm of humility carved into memory. You slip beneath blankets, neck gratefully free, and exhale. Outside, wind scurries through alleys, rattling shutters like distant hasps. The stocks stand empty now, moonlight bleaching them silver, waiting for another story. But for tonight, only your breathing clicks, eyes close, no wooden frame, no goat cheese, just soft straw pillow, inviting sleep's forgiving stocks. The next afternoon you're drawn to the bustling marketplace, not by gossip, though there's plenty, but by the clatter of iron buckles echoing down the cobblestones. Ahead, two constables shepherd a trio of culprits wearing what can only be described as theatrical torture, heavy metal face cages that transform ordinary heads into parody, gargoyles. Each mask bristles with rivets, hinged jaws, and most humiliating, the parody gargoyles. Each mask bristles with rivets, hinged jaws, and most humiliating, the elongated tongue of tin that juts out like a forged accusation. Welcome to the Iron Mask Parade, where loose talk earns permanent props. The air tastes of roasted chestnuts and damp wool, yet present in equal measure is the metallic tang drifting from the masks. You edge closer, boots slipping a little on old hay, to examine the first gossip monger. Her iron muzzle is shaped into a comically wide grin, frozen in exaggerated mirth. A padlock dangles under her chin, and a leather strap runs over her skull to keep the device in place. Every word she attempts emerges as a muffled rattle. Mainstream historical fact: these scolds bridles, or branks, appeared in Scotland and northern England as early as the 16th century, designed to curb what courts called women's contentious tongues. Some branks even housed internal spikes to press the tongue should the wearer attempt speech. The constables lead their captives through the throng, rattling a small hand drum to guarantee maximum attention. Shopkeepers pause mid-haggling, farmers mutter prayers, children point, giggling at the grimacing metal faces. One boy throws a bundle of sheep's wool. It bounces harmlessly off a mask, but the iron grin twists the gesture into pantomime comedy. Quirky tidbit: municipal rolls from Newcastle mention borrowing particularly ornate branks from neighbouring towns for special processions, an early example of punishment costume sharing. You walk parallel, matching the prisoner's slow pace. The second mask sports donkey ears and a tin badge stamped with the word slander. If humiliation had a fashion label, this would be the spring collection. The prisoner's shoulders sag. Each step jerks the ears into a mock nod. A brewer beside you nudges and whispers. That one said the alderman waters his ale. Light joke slips from your lips. Can't blame her. Half the town waters it with gossip anyway. The brewer smothers a laugh, wiping foam from his beard. Past the spice stall, the procession halts. The bailiff unrolls a parchment and recites the culprit's offences, sowing rumours, spreading marital secrets, accusing neighbours of sorcery without evidence. As he reads, he bangs the parchment tube against each mask for emphasis. Historians still argue whether these public shaming tools genuinely silence slander or simply shifted rumours from spoken alleys to whispered corners. Court records show a dip in recorded cases during brank mania, but diaries hint gossip merely mutated, thriving in code and gesture. You notice the third mask, smaller yet crueler, a simple cage with an interior spoon-shaped plate that sits atop the tongue. Its wearer's eyes water constantly, every swallow a visible struggle. The plate's edge forces her to drool, amplifying shame. You shiver, imagining taste of cold iron with every breath. Crowd mood teeters between curiosity and discomfort. A weaver crosses herself, lips moving in silent prayer. Constables perform the parade loop, circling fountain, so each market quadrant witnesses the living cautionary tale. A baker's apprentice sprinkles flour into the air, chalking a ghostly halo around one mask, perhaps in jest, perhaps in scorn. A fiddler plays a jaunty tune, converting punishment into carnival. You reflect on yesterday's stocks. Wooden bruises seemed kinder compared with this iron gag designed for hours-long degradation and real pain. The bailiff pauses again, raising hand for silence. He intones a final admonition. Let no tongue wag without warrant, lest iron teach it courtesy. Masks clatter in unintended applause. That phrase will ripple through taverns tonight, fueling new whispers ironically birthed from an effort to stop them. Procession complete. The prisoners are led to Pillory Yard, where branks will remain locked until sunset. You follow at distance, watching constable unlock gate, guide them into shade. They sit on stools, iron still fused to skin, unable to drink. A kindly nun arrives with straw-tipped flask, offering water trickled down cheek. Most spills, little reaches tongue. The nun hums hymn, gentle counterpoint to harsh iron. You feel swell of empathy. Then recall rumour of Alderman's Waterdale. How much harm really versus this? A scribe beside you sketches mask designs into ledger margins for Silence Festival posters. Proof commerce always finds spectacle. He mutters about adding iron grin discount to tomorrow's linen sale. The marketplace never rests. Sun climbs, metal heats. The bailiff checks locks, warns watchers to keep distance. Parchment states any tampering incurs fine. A passerby asks if branks ever used on men. Constable shrugs. Rare, but yes, chronic blasphemers met the same fate. Infamy favoured equality when convenient. You file mental note, punishment often gendered, but loopholes exist. As afternoon shadows lengthen, the bailiff returns with key ring. He unlatches each brank, easing cage away from flushed faces. Red welts mark where straps dug skin. Prisoners massage jaws slowly, tasting air without iron. For first time in hours. They're warned any repeat gossip invites longer sentence, and next mask has spikes. Their nods quick yet numb. The trio shuffle off, escorted home by relatives. One removes donkey ear cap quickly, tossing it into gutter where a dog sniffs, unimpressed. You pick up dropped parchment scrap, bailiff speech, ink smeared. You fold it into diary, historical artifact disguised as souvenir. Marketplace Hume resumes regular cadence. Gossip ironically erupts. Some praise branks, others call them cruel. You overhear debate near spice vendor. Was rumour worse than public cruelty? The question lingers like cinnamon dust on breeze. Returning to manor, you rub jaw sympathetically, imagining faint bruise where phantom iron once pressed. Lanterns flicker alive along streets. You jot diary, iron mask parade, theatrical restraint, community control via spectacle, human dignity versus rumour economy. Add line, future historians may brand Brank's PR disaster with good acoustics. Before bed you rinse face with lavender water, sighing gratitude for unencumbered speech. You whisper aloud just to savour freedom of tongue, from mild complaint about chamber chill to silly rhyme about donkey ears. Voice echoes soft, unpunished. Blankets embrace. Your jaw relaxes fully for first time all day. Outside, distant laughter suggests new rumours already blooming. Iron masks rust quietly in constable's shed, waiting for next performance. You drift toward sleep, lips parting in peaceful exhale. No metal to mute the gentle snore that follows. A rooster's late morning crow follows you past the castle moat, its brackish surface rippling in the pale light as carts creak over the drawbridge. The wooden beams judder beneath your boots, but it's the rhythmic splash beyond that truly draws attention. Ahead, near the water gate, a crowd clusters around a long oak beam that juts over the moat like an overgrown teeter-totter. At one end sits a stout chair bound in iron hoops. Its leather seat is dark and slippery from earlier voyages into the drink. Welcome to the dunking stool, a contraption devoted to soaking troublesome women, and the occasional rowdy brewer with equal enthusiasm. You edge through the onlookers, breath frosting in the cool air. The bailiff stands nearby with an official scroll, reciting charges against today's unfortunate candidate. Willful practice of witchcraft, idle gossip and brewing ale below strength. 3 offences for the price of 1 ride. Mainstream historical fact, dunking stools or cucking stools were common across medieval and early modern Britain, initially aimed at dishonest bakers and scolding wives, later repurposed during witch hunt panics to test a suspect's innocence. If she floated, she was guilty. If she sank, well, at least her soul was presumably cleansed. 2 reeves escort the accused, a pale midwife named Alina, toward the stool. She wears nothing but a coarse shift, already damp where nervous sweat met morning mist. The crowd murmurs. Alina's chin trembles, yet she raises an eyebrow at the reeve who accidentally trips on his own cloak hem. You admire her composure. This stool rarely leaves dignity unwrinkled. Quirky tidbit. Some towns added a rotating element to the beam, using a hand crank to spin the chair between dunks. Cheering spectators called it the whirligig bath. The reeves bind Alina's wrists lightly. Tradition demands no heavy fetters after all. She must float or sink of her own devilish accord. One edge of the beam creaks as men haul the counterweight rope, raising chair and occupant above murky moat water. A hush spreads through bystanders. Even the geese paddling beside the bank seem suddenly attentive. You note a small sign nailed to beam. Silence. Let guilt speak. Ironically, a fishmonger and a blacksmith begin arguing about who sells better pickled herring, their debate puncturing the mandated hush. Light joke surfaces. Perhaps they, not Alina, should take the chair for public disturbance, but you keep jest to yourself, jaw still empathetically tender from yesterday's mental brank. The bailiff drops his arm. The reeves release rope. Chair plunges down, wood groaning as it slices water. Moat swallows Alina, in a splash that douses front row spectators. Cold shock ripples through crowd. A few gasp, one maid squeals, but most watch wide-eyed. Bubbles rise. 10 seconds, 15, then rope hauls up, cranking chair back into air. Alina emerges coughing, hair plastered like riverweed across cheeks. She shivers, but glares defiantly at bailiff. Historians still argue whether dunking stools were truly effective tests of witchcraft or simply public intimidation tools. Records show many floaters deemed guilty later confessed under duress, while chroniclers admit heavy linen shifts could trap air and skew buoyancy. The bailiff declares first dunk inconclusive, orders a second. As Alina lowers again, you step back, noticing water-level lapping stonework peppered with moss. Your boots nearly slip on slick slab, makeshift hazard that once caused a reeve himself to tumble into moat, according to town legend. No one dunked him for clumsiness, though gossip claims he caught a cold that lingered all winter, watery karma. After 3rd submersion, Alina's breathing turns shallow. A compassionate reeve gestures to bailiff, suggesting enough proof has been gathered. Besides, her shift now clings transparent, spectacle turning unseemly for churchgoers. Bailiff hesitates. Spectators crave verdict, but he relents. Rope hoist chair onto dry bank where 2 healers wrap blankets around trembling prisoner. She spits moat water, muttering that her ale may be weak, but her lungs are stout. Mainstream fact slide. Some municipal charters limited dunking sessions to 3 immersions, citing risk of pneumonia. Repeated breaches led to rare fines for overzealous bailiffs. Today, rule observed. Alina's accuser, a rival midwife, scowls, yet cannot protest without appearing unsatisfied by holy justice. Crowd disperses, some disappointed at lack of spectral confession. The fishmonger resumes herring debate, tacking new angle. Moat water allegedly improves pickling brine. Shoppers laugh. Commerce trumps condemnation. Meanwhile, a friar records event on parchment, noting humorous resilience of accused. You watch Alina hobble toward infirmary, blankets steaming in cold air, dignity dented but unsunk. You stroll along bank, fingertips trailing stone, chair hangs dripping, water pattering rhythm on mud. You wonder how many midwives, bakers and brewers endured same soak, only to shuffle home with chills. The thought lingers, echoing splash upon splash in memory. On return path, you stop at alehouse, where proprietor boasts of dunk-free beer. You order small cup, flavor earthy, surprisingly pleasant. You toast Alina in silent solidarity, a gesture unseen but warming nonetheless. Diary awaits. You record dunking stool. Part punishment, part aquatic test, mostly chilly theatre. Add note, quirky rotating stools, crowd snacks, pickled water rumour. You underline, thinking these details might amuse future listeners, needing gentle lull of strange history. Night settles. In chamber, you wring damp cloak hem. Stray splash reached you too. Candle flicker recalls dripping chair. You shake shoulders as if still cold. Yet bed beckons with dry straw and wool blankets. A luxury greater now. You slip in, whispering thanks for unsplintered speech and undunked shift. Outside, moat lies still, stool silhouette stark in moonlight. Wind ruffles water, carrying faint echo of bailiff's order. Breath slows. You imagine gentle rocking, perhaps reminiscent of Dunk's initial descent. But here motion soothes, not frightens. Lids close. You drift, promising tomorrow to chronicle next punishment, the villager's hue and cry gauntlet. Sleep pulls you beneath. No chair, no water, only deep, calm dark. You wake to the clang of a handbell ricocheting down the lane, a noise sharp enough to bounce dreams straight out of your pillow. Before you even lace your boots, you catch distant shouts weaving through the chill air. Hue and cry, thief on the run. That phrase is medieval code for neighborhood watch on espresso. Every able-bodied soul must rush out, brandish whatever is handy, and form a human gauntlet through which the unlucky miscreant must sprint. Of course you're curious, and you still owe last night's diary a first-hand account of this so-called citizen participation punishment. So you tighten your cloak and jog toward the commotion. Just beyond the market cross, townsfolk line either side of a narrow alleyway, framed by wattle fences and cabbage carts. Some wheeled switches, others rotten turnips. One gleeful grandmother holds aloft a pouch of powdered chalk. At the far end of the gauntlet, two constables drag a lanky youth, today's thief by his tunic elbows. They position him at the starting stake, a splintery marker you remember from the stocks courtyard. You join the crowd, heart thumping in anticipation, though you tell yourself it's purely research. Mainstream historical fact. England's 1285 Statute of Winchester formalized hue and cry, obliging every citizen to pursue wrongdoers from town to town until capture. Localized variations added the gauntlet dash as both penance and spectacle. A town crier raises bronze bell for silence, then announces charges, pilfering 3 loaves and 1 wheel of surprisingly bland cheese, apparently not the goat-smeared delicacy inflicted on the miller. The crowd murmurs sympathetic jokes about baker's skinny loaves matching skinny thief. Light joke floats from your lips. At least he aimed for carbs, not conversation, nodding to yesterday's gagged culprits. A nearby smith guffaws, tapping his cudgel against palm. Constables signal, and the thief, call him Hob, takes tentative stance like a sprinter with no starting gun, just shame propellant. The bell clangs. Hob bolts down the lane. Instantly the gauntlet erupts. Cabbage cores fly. Birch switches whistle. Chalk dust billows. You dodge a stray radish. Feel its thud against boot. Hob slips on stray kale leaf. Regains footing. Pushes onward under barrage of jeers. Ahead, a butcher flings tripe that slaps Hob's shoulder with wet splat, drawing collective groan and perverse cheer. Quirky tidbit. Some towns issued throwing licenses for butchers and fishmongers during gauntlets, nominally to ensure spoiled meat got useful disposal, public shaming plus street cleaning in one foul toss. Hob, now streaked with offal, stumbles but keeps feet moving. Historians still argue whether such community punishment lowered crime or simply bonded neighbours through permissible cruelty. Parish minutes list steady petty theft numbers, yet diaries describe increased camaraderie after each chase. At halfway mark, Hob must pass between 2 horn lanterns tied to posts. A widow ladles lukewarm porridge onto his head. Budget beret of disgrace. He yelps but steam masks embarrassment momentarily. You note the sensory overload, iron smell of tripe, vinegary tang of pickled beets now bursting against wooden slats, chant of townsfolk clapping rhythmic like tavern drum circle. The atmosphere is part carnival, part collective stress relief, a medieval group workout for morals. Suddenly, Hob veers, attempting side exit through a gap by cobbler's stall. The cobbler's apprentice blocks with leather scrap shield, gentle but firm, guiding him back. The rule is clear: finish the lane or face second lap. That threat alone straightens Hob like a drawn bow. He sprints, knees high, tripe dripping. Remembering the dunking stool's lesson in humility injections, you observe Hob's facial transformation, from rabbit panic to determined doggedness. His final meters echo the miller's resignation in stocks, but with forward momentum. A baker swings half-stale loaf, missing by inch, flour plume trails like comet tail. Hob crosses finish stake, collapses against trough, chest heaving. Constables declare gauntlet served. Any further blows incur fine. Crowd's energy dissipates into gossip clusters comparing throw accuracy. Someone hands Hob bucket of water. Compassion lives between cabbage tosses. You approach trough, jotting mental notes, bruise patterns, thrown object categories, comedic potential. Hob catches breath, glances up, eyes grateful. You wield only quill, not turnip. You ask if bread was worth it. He shrugs. Hunger whips harder than birch. Perspective delivered free of charge. Constables escort Hob to baker's stall for restitution. He must sweep and knead dough for week, no pay. Community service before the term existed. You trail the trio, listening to baker outline schedule. In odd twist, stolen bread leads to new unpaid apprenticeship. You note irony, punishment that feeds economy and punishes simultaneously. You circle back to alley, now littered with vegetable carnage. Town beadle and a flock of geese scavenge remains. Feast for birds, free cleanup. The smith collects intact cabbage heads for pig fodder. Nothing wasted. Diary time looms, but you linger enough to witness humble broom squad. Children giggling as they sweep chalk lines and lettuce debris. As they work, they replay gauntlet with sticks, giggles, imitating tripe throw in slow motion. Childhood, it seems, harvests practice for adult rituals. Heading toward manor, you consider how every punishment so far, stocks, branks, dunking gauntlet, relies on audience. Perhaps communal spectacle equals medieval television, minus remote plus rotten produce. You reflect on modern parallels, comment threads, public shaming via pixels, but stop, meta-commentary can wait until blankets. Back in chamber, you peel leaf fragment from cloak hem. Souvenir lettuce. Candlelight reveals subtle chalk dust on gloves. Reminder you stood closer than planned. You cleanse hands with lavender water. Swirl loose chalk into pale slurry. The scent mingles with birch resin still clinging from thrown switch that grazed shoulder. Diary spread. Hue and cry gauntlet. Communal chase lane. Food fight of morality. You add bullet list. Cabbage, tripe, chalk, porridge. Pain scale, mild moderate. Dignity loss high. Also note, baker restitution twist. Bread thief becomes baker's broom. Light joke scribble. Hue and cry, more like stew and pie. Quill down, candle flicks. You stretch sore neck. No brank but tension from dodging radishes. Outside, alley silent, but imagination replays. Hob's staggering finish like lullaby run. You slip under blankets, ears attuned to distant bell now quiet. Sleep edges in behind eyelids peppered with flower motes. You breathe deep once, scent of lavender and faint tripe merging in strangely comforting accord. No chase tonight, just soft pursuit of dreams. The tavern is already humming when you duck under its creaking lintel, led here by equal parts curiosity and the irresistible aroma of spiced small beer. Floorboards stick to your soles with a syrup of last night's ale, but you hardly notice because the main spectacle sits dead center, a squat wooden barrel, head ends sliced away, crude armholes hacked through the staves, and a pair of patch bare legs wobbling beneath like a puppet, whose strings are just barely tied. Meet today's fashion statement, the drunkard's cloak. Old master Withers, brewer, tax collector, and informal moral police, wraps his tankard on a tabletop to summon hush. He calls forward Osric, a cooper's apprentice, who last evening quaffed 6 pints and attempted to woo the bailiff's mule with slurred poetry. Your mind reels at the romantic ambition. The mule, you're told, was not impressed. For his misdeed, public drunkenness and general absurdity, Osric must parade home wearing, or rather inside, this ale barrel. Mainstream historical fact. By the mid-1600s, municipal codes in parts of England and the Low Countries prescribed the drunkard's cloak, a spent beer or wine barrel, modified so the offender's head poked through the top, arms through the sides, and feet shuffled along like a walking keg. The weight alone, often 40 pounds once water-soaked, ensured sobriety by the journey's end, while the sheer ridiculousness warned onlookers that overindulgence could turn anyone into living tavern furniture. Two tavern lads tip the barrel, guiding Osric's head through its jagged aperture. He winces as splinters snag curls, then thrusts arms outward, looking like a startled hedgehog sporting oak armor. Someone wedges a wooden ladle between staves, a makeshift scepter of shame. You catch a whiff of stale hops mingling with Osric's breath and decide your appetite for small beer can wait. Quirky tidbit. Certain Dutch towns embellished the cloak by painting clownish faces or verses onto the staves. One recorded plank reads, "Drink to thine health, but leave thy legs for walking." Here the tavern's cooper has scrawled a rough mule sketch above the words "Better woo ale than animals." It's amateur art, but the crowd loves it. Withers signals. Osric shuffles toward the door, barrel thudding the sticky planks. Laughter trails him like a minstrel's lute line gone off key. You and a dozen patrons spill outside into the twilight. Moist cobbles reflect lantern glow, and Osric's keg-clad silhouette waddles ahead, arms flailing to keep balance. Each step turns the street into a low-stakes earthquake. Ale sloshes inside residual grooves, slapping his ears with sudsy regret. A gaggle of children dance around him, banging wooden spoons against tin cups in rhythmic mock fanfare. One small girl offers Osric half a crust, perhaps charity, perhaps comedic prop. He tries to bow, barrel tips, nearly topples. The crowd gasps, then cheers when he rights himself by pinwheeling arms like sails caught in rogue wind. Light joke slides from your lips to the woman beside you. That's one way to develop a solid core workout. She laughs, clutching basket of turnips. You pace alongside, scribbling details in mind. The barrel's iron hoops gleam under torchlight. Droplets of ale drip and dot Osric's path, leaving a scent map stray dogs adore. As if on cue, a scruffy hound trots behind, lapping puddles. Osric glances back, muttering apology to the mule and to the dog both. Halfway home, the procession pauses at a crossroads, where the baker's cart blocks way. Baker seizes opportunity, producing a funnel and theatrically pretending to refill the walking cask. The crowd roars as Osric sputters. "No refills, sir. I'm full to the brim." Historians still argue whether such antics increased tavern revenue by attracting more curious drinkers or effectively curtailed binge culture by showcasing its hazards. Alehouse ledgers from York show slight sales, dips the week after a cloak parade, yet carnival accounts note spikes in pastry purchases along the route. While the baker milks applause, you note physical toll. Osric's shoulders sag, sweat beads under fringe, arms tremble with barrel heft. The punishment may be comedic, but gravity adds gravitas. No lash marks, yet muscles will ache for days. At the Cooper's Lane, his co-workers await with lanterns, ready to guide Barrel the final stretch. They chant a mocking drinking song, hoist the staves, hoist the shame, roll him sober all the same. As the group turns corner, your escort duty feels complete. You peel away, reflecting on spectacle's blend of public humour and private misery. Stock's bruised pride, Brank's gagged speech, dunking chilled bones, but the drunkard's cloak hijacks movement itself, turning body into billboard. Its punishment engineered to let the offender carry evidence of his folly. Literally, you slip back into tavern for that postponed small beer, serving wench wipes rim before pouring hygienic habit perhaps inspired by recent parade. You sniff foam, swirl, take cautious sip. The ale tastes richer after witnessing its overuse consequences, pleasure tempered by empathy. Tavern chatter shifts from Osric's mule serenade to wagers on tomorrow's whipping tree fines, but that's a future entry. Back in your chamber, you unlace boots, still sticky with keg drippings. Candle pools, warm light on diary. Quill scratches, drunkard's cloak, walking barrel, 40 lelba shame suit. Kids provide percussion. You add bullet. Sober by exhaustion. Dogs approve spillage. Underline phrase. Punishment immobilizes elasticity of dignity. Lavender water dabbed on collar chases. Ale musk. You stretch arms. The freedom to swing them feels luxurious after watching Osric's limited range. Beneath blankets, you imagine barrel yawning open, releasing weary apprentice onto straw pallet. Maybe he'll write barrel blues ballad. Maybe mule will forgive. Your eyes flutter. The echo of sloshing staves rocks you toward sleep. In dream prelude, you picture yourself in tiny barrel boat adrift on gentle sea. No shame, only soft rocking lull. Breath deepens, barrel fades, night settles. Mist still hovers over the common green when the tolling of a cracked handbell signals a different sort of bargain day, the whipping tree tax. You follow the summons, cloak brushing dewy grass, until a ring of townsfolk comes into view around a venerable birch whose white bark gleams like a scholar's parchment. Ropes dangle from one lower limb, neatly spaced, their frayed knots telling stories of earlier deals struck between law and wallet. Today's principle is ruthlessly simple. Pay your overdue levy in silver, or pay it in stripes before sunset. A barrel-chested reeve unrolls his list of debtors. Millers behind on grain tithes. Shepherds shirking wool duty. Even a minor noble who rumour says spent tax coin on imported lute strings. The reeve announces each name with theatrical gusto, pivoting to the crowd for gasps and raised brows. Mainstream historical fact. While whipping posts stood in many medieval towns, a whipping tree sat at the edge of some manors, exploited as quick, inexpensive justice. Corporal penalty often offset or erased small fines, saving constables bookkeeping pains. First in line is Piers the shepherd. 50 fleeces overdue. He steps forward, tunic kinked with lanolin, and opts for lashes, his coin pouch too light. 2 beadles secure his wrists to the rope ring, leaving back exposed. A hush settles, even birds quiet. You catch scent of birch resin, woody clean at odds with impending sting. 1 beadle draws a bundle of fresh birch rods, their thin switches trembling like nervous fingers. Quirky tidbit, villages sometimes dyed the rod tips with saffron, so the first stroke left a golden mark, both festive and humiliating. Today they're plain, but the symbolism sticks. Nature itself levies the tax. 10 strokes promised, 10 delivered. Each snap is sharp but brief, more percussion than gore. Piers grunts yet remains upright. By stroke 5 he mutters a psalm out of rhythm. The crowd counts softly, not from cruelty but tradition. Communal heartbeat to pace the ordeal. On the final strike, the reeve declares Piers square with his majesty's ledger. 2 aldermen dab a smear of honey salve onto welts, a mercy, and perhaps a nod to keeping valuable shepherds functional. You inhale, realizing shoulders have tensed in sympathy. A light joke seeps out of your lips to the baker beside you. I'd rather knead dough than need lashes. He chuckles, rubbing flower-chapped palms. Humour brief, tension lingers. Next stands Lady Aveline, the lute-string noble. She wears velvet, but eyes ringed from sleepless worry. Despite purse lined with coin, pride compels her to choose the birch. Paying in stripes will broadcast penitent humility. Maybe salvage social credit. Historians still argue whether public corporal alternatives appealed as moral theatre or genuine financial respite. Court archives reveal wealthier offenders sometimes preferred lashes to appear equal before law, while others saw it as sensational gesture overshadowing debt. Before ropes tighten, Lady Aveline's maid discreetly removes her brooch to spare silk. First strike cuts silence. She exhales sharply, biting lower lip. Yet by third, her shoulders square, some fierce melody of composure within. You wonder if later she'll play those new lute strings with hands remembering birch tempo. The sun inches upward, warming bark until sap scent deepens. A small group of children, future taxpayers, sit cross-legged, trading guesses on lash count per shilling. You note their arithmetic appears sharper than some aldermen. Behind them, a grocer sells pickled eggs stamped WEP Day Special, proving commerce never misses a beat. Mid-queue, a brewer steps forth, bribe hidden in sleeve. He whispers to Reeve, offering 2 barrels of ale if the stripes soften. The reeve declines. Fairness is pageantry, yet one cannot help noticing his tankard later filled generously. Politics of pain play beneath canopy of birch leaves. Your turn. Thankfully, no debt today. But you imagine rough bark against palms, rods whistling, crowd counting your shortcomings aloud. The thought prods empathy. Stripes heal, yet humiliation lingers like splinter under nail. By late afternoon, rope fibers darken with sweat and resin. The final debtor, old widow Marguerite, owes a single shilling she misplaced during lentil market. The reeve hesitates. Townsfolk murmur support. Someone passes hat. Coins clink. Debt paid. Birch spared. Momentary solidarity softens sharp edges of the day. Alden, the parish clerk, records each lash in ledger. Name, offence, number, witness initials. You peek over shoulder, neat columns, ink blots like tiny bruises on calfskin page. His quill squeaks. History fossilizes pain into tidy sums. As sun dips, reeve blesses tree, thanking it for just service. He knots fresh ribbons around trunk, colourful streamers swaying in breeze. Visual reminder of day's closure, festive, yet each ribbon equal one life unbruised tomorrow. You collect a fallen birch rod sliver, resin scent warm between fingers, souvenir or caution talisman. Walking back, you pass Lady Aveline's manor. Lute music drifts through lattice, minor key tinged with birch's metronome. Piers tends sheep near hedge, back bandaged but whistling. Life stitches onward with wry resilience. In your chamber, candle casts stripes of shadow on wall, echoing birch marks. You swirl lavender water, cleansing day's dust. Diary open, ink flows, whipping tree tax, birch bark finance, pain in installments, crowd counts coins in stripes. You add, salve mercy, ribbon closure, political ale, underline historians' debate about theatre versus thrift. Blankets greet tired limbs, faint sting haunts imagination, though skin unscathed. You tuck birch sliver into diary spine, promise future caution when market levies call. As eyelids lower, trees' resin aroma mingles with lavender, weaving forest quiet lull. The crowd's counting fades into heartbeat. You drift, debt-free for now, into night's calm ledger. You think you've heard every oddball punishment tune until a constable drags a wrought iron contraption into the Guildhall courtyard. A barred cylinder no longer than a walking cane, fitted with thumb screws, hinged clamps and a blunt mouthpiece that looks suspiciously like a stifled yawn. Step lively, Bollideer, he barks, and out shuffles a lanky fiddler named Hobble Tom, eyes red from too many sleepless tavern sets. Today he's not here to serenade, he's here to wear the shame flute. Tom's crime, playing the same out-of-tune jig for 3 straight nights, driving patrons to prayer, anything to escape his screeching strings. Local ordinance lists discordant disturbance alongside swine loose on feast days. Mainstream historical fact, in parts of medieval and early modern Germany, Austria and the Low Countries, town councils punished bad musicians, particularly those who mangled church tunes or ignored curfew, by locking their hands into an iron flute stock. The device immobilized fingers against fake keys while the mouthpiece sat between lips. The offender marched through streets appearing to perform, though no melody sang back. 2 beadles hoist Tom's fiddle, aloft like a trophy gone sour. Meanwhile, a blacksmith's apprentice unclasps the shame flute. Up close it resembles a Gothic recorder, fused to handcuffs, holes drilled purely for aesthetics. Quirky tidbit, some flutes featured tin resonance chambers, so each shuffling step produced a pathetic whistle, humiliating musician and entertaining crowd. This model sports a rusty reed. Someone gives it test puff, yielding wheeze like dying goose. The beadles slot Tom's thumbs and fingers onto exterior studs, palms facing sky as though begging forgiveness from every note he ever butchered. Iron clamps snap, screws turn. Tom winces but cracks a joke. At least I finally hold a key without missing it. Laughter ripples, tension softens. One child offers him a wooden spoon baton. Tom bows theatrically, spoon clattering against iron in sad percussion. Constable signals drummer to strike cadence. Procession begins. You join cluster of townsfolk trailing along cobblestone lane. lined with shop signs painted lute yellow by morning sun. As Tom shuffles, the loose reed inside flute emits breathy puffs, fief like an asthmatic swallow following wrong wind. Light joke slides from your lips to nearby candlemaker. Newtown anthem, the squeaking swan in G minor. She snorts beeswax-scented laughter. Tom's pace slows, flute weight drags shoulders, yet he gamely bows to each doorway, a performer clinging to stage even in disgrace. Historians still argue whether shame flutes aim to improve musicianship or simply satisfy villagers' appetite for comic relief. Guild records note repeat offenders, often practiced harder afterward, even purchasing pitch pipes, though cynics claim they simply moved towns. Mid-route, procession halts beside bakery. Flour-dusted apprentices toss crumbs onto flute's mouthpiece. Tom tries to blow them off, produces dusty toot reminiscent of smithy bellows. Crowd cheers. One barber harmonizes with comb and paper kazoo. For a fleeting moment, discord becomes community jam session, proof that mockery can birth spontaneous creativity. Constable resumes march, steering toward Church Square where choirmaster awaits. Legend says choirmaster first petitioned council for instrument, tired of Tom's tavern riffs drifting through midnight windows. As Tom approaches, choirmaster lifts tuning fork, strikes tone clear and pure. He holds it to shame flute. Iron hums faintly, mock dialogue between perfection and parody. Choirmaster declares, "Let the bell of harmony smite the clapper of chaos." Dramatic but effective. Crowd applauds witty flourish. Punishment climax. Tom must stand on church steps through noon bells, flute pinned, listening to actual choir rehearse. They launch into soaring Kyrie, voices washing over square like velvet tide. Contrast stings. You see Tom's eyes water, perhaps from dust, perhaps remorse. He taps spoon softly against iron body, approximating rhythm, seeking redemption in syncopation. Sun climbs, iron warms, reed stutters louder, sweat beads on Tom's brow. You note practicality. Heat ensures discomfort without bloodshed, aligning with council's preference for symbolic correction. A tanner passing by comments that shame flute costs less than jail and doubles as moral billboard. Economics of embarrassment. Noon bells ring. Constable loosens screws. As iron clamps open, Tom flexes stiff fingers, massaging joints. Choirmaster approaches, offers cloth to wipe sweat and flour. Unexpected kindness. "Come to vestry tomorrow," he says. "We'll tune that fiddle." The crowd murmurs approval, punishment pivoting into mentorship. You jot mental memo. Humiliation sometimes plants seeds for skill. Tom bows deeply, picks up spoon baton, waves comedic curtain call. Crowd disperses to merchants and midday ale. You linger as Tom strides, not shuffles, toward tavern. Shame flute slung across shoulder like bizarre trophy. Bartender meets him at door with mock salute, and you suspect watered ale. Back in chamber, you cradle iron stylus to scribble diary entry. Shame flute, portable concert of ridicule. Breathy wheeze teaches tempo, potential path to redemption. Add note, musical scolding, cheaper than incarceration, possibly effective. Research choir follow-up. You set quill down. Flex fingers in solidarity with Tom. Grateful your own keyboard is parchment, not iron. Lavender water rinse softens ink smudges. Faint beeswax candle flickers a steady A-pitch hum. Outside, distant fiddle scales. Could be Tom already practicing. Hope blooms like a major chord. Blankets wrapped. You inhale warm wax and faint flower scent still clinging to cloak. Ears ring with imaginary feepriff reed, now distant lullaby. Eyes close. Night's overture fades into quiet adagio, and you slip into sleep. No tongue clamped, no flute mocking breath, only calm cadence of heart-tapping restful thought. A crisp afternoon breeze stirs parchment notices tacked to the Guildhall door, and one headline seizes your eye: Assizes for the sow that slew. Beneath the bold script, a clerk's neat hand invites townsfolk to witness an animal court. Yes, an actual trial where pig and rooster will stand before robed judges like two disgraced citizens wearing invisible breeches. Curiosity outweighs caution. You follow the trickle of townspeople funneling into the stone chapter house. wondering whether yesterday's shame flute wheeze prepared your ears for the solemn oinks ahead. Inside, wooden benches creak under the shifting weight of spectators. At the front, a raised dais supports a trio of magistrates capped in sober black. Between them and the benches sits a small rail, normally reserved for petty thieves, now containing a stout white sow tethered by leather halter. Beside her, perched on a miniature gallows post, roosts a jittery red-feathered cock, eyes darting like marbles in candlelight. You realize the rooster's perch is fashioned from repurposed whipping tree birch. The ghost of earlier stripes lingers in the pale bark. The bailiff thumps his staff, calling session to order. Supernge an historical fact. Medieval Europe occasionally tried animals for crimes ranging from crop destruction to fatal injuries. Records from 15th century France describe pigs executed for attacking infants, complete with legal counsel and fully transcribed proceedings. Today's docket claims this sow trampled a brewer's child, while the rooster allegedly crowed during compline, thereby tempting monks toward late-night grumbling. A cleric steps forward as prosecutor, unrolling charge scroll and reading in Latin so ponderous, even the rooster seems bored. The sow snuffles, snout brushing straw. Quirky tidbit: some towns dressed offending animals in human clothes to emphasize moral culpability. This pig wears no tunic, yet someone has knotted a simple bonnet over her ears, a nod to tradition and perhaps comedic relief. Defense counsel, a thin friar with spectacles fogged by breath, pleads that the child startled the sow first and that rooster crow timing was mere instinct, not malice. He references Genesis, noting animals lack the fallen reasoning of Adam. Judges frown, quills poised. Historians still argue whether such trials were serious legal attempts or elaborate morality plays reminding people that divine order governs all creatures. Court transcripts show genuine penalties, including excommunication of insect swarms, illustrating how legal theatre merged with theology. As testimony drags, you note audience reactions. A tanner whispers that bacon will be pricey if sow swings. A seamstress clucks sympathy for bonneted ears. Children on backbench stifle giggles. One mimics rooster crow until Nanny shushes him. You share bench with same candlemaker, who enjoyed the squeaking swan joke. She murmurs, "At least this trial smells better than tripe day." Light joke surfaces. You reply, "Let's hope verdict doesn't fry us with court costs." One joke quota met. Subtle. Witnesses parade. Brewer sobbing, claiming lost heirloom cradle. Monk testifying. Rooster's crow disrupted psalm recitation. Sow's handler insists animal normally docile. Rooster's keeper says foul mistimed crow because bell ringer misstruck compline bell. Blame ricochets like peas on pewter plate. Judges confer. Quill scratching. You reflect on earlier punishments. Stocks relied on community scorn. Branks gagged words. Dunking chilled bones. Gauntlet turned streets into gaudy courtroom. Birch tree taxed flesh. Shame flute policed ears. Now justice stares at creatures incapable of defense, yet ritual proceeds with solemnity of cathedral mass. Decision: rooster guilty of disturbing holy office. Sentence: symbolic feather plucking and banishment to outskirts farm. Bailiff hands keeper shears. 2 feathers removed. Rooster squawks indignity but remains alive. Crowd exhales relief. Children applaud light penalty. So case heavier. Judges declare her actions reckless but provoked. Penalty commuted from execution to muzzling with iron brank. Echo of human gag and lifelong tether near mill. Away from children. Bonnet removed. Swapped for leather muzzle. Wrought by same smith who forged shame flute. Craftsman diversifying market. Clerk records verdicts. So led away. Bonnet drooping from handler's belt like souvenir. Rooster escorted by keeper. 2 feathers fluttering to ground. Collectors scramble for curious tokens. As crowd disperses, you linger, examining fallen feather tipped in crimson wax from court seal. Visual flourish of law stamped onto nature. You pocket feather, thought of diary illustration. Outside, setting sun smolders behind bell tower. Rooster's distant crow out of sync with hour echoes across courtyard. Ironic encore: no judge can penalize now. You walk toward tavern. Reflecting trial of beasts reveals medieval craving for cosmic order, punishing randomness with ceremony. Perhaps it comforts citizens who endured plague, famine, and yesterday's birch rods. In tavern nook you dip quill. Animal court trials. Pig bonnet, feather verdict, law extends beyond human. Adline, same smithcrafts, branks and muzzles, iron industry thrives on folly. Underline references for storytelling flow. Lavender water once again erases ink blot on thumb. Feather placed between diary pages, phoenix ash spark glittering along quill tip. Candle glows amber, world quieting to stable hum. Breath slows, eyelids settle. No stocks or flutes tonight, merely soft rustle of straw bed and faint hog grunt echo carried on wind. You drift off, grateful your next judgment arrives only in dream courtroom of wandering mind. Early market chatter curls through your shutters like the aroma of fresh rye, and you follow it to the square, eager to see how justice rises with the bread. Stall awnings bloom in bright stripes, barrels brim with pickled onions, but all eyes tilt upward toward a creaking pulley that hoists today's wrongdoer into breakfast air. Dangling 15 feet above shoppers is the crooked baker cage, an open slatted basket just wide enough for a kneading table, yet now occupied by the very man who underfilled his loaves. You recognize the culprit, Master Gervais, by his flour dust hair and the measuring rod strapped mockingly to his belt. Yesterday his short loaves failed the alderman's way off by 2 ounces, a crumb to nobles, but an insult to labourers whose coin feeds families. Mainstream historical fact. Many medieval cities enforced a size of bread statutes. Bakers caught selling light loaves risked fines, pillory time, or suspension in elevated cages, so customers could pelt them with stale crusts, an upward stock of sorts. Rope groans as constables crank the wooden winch, swinging the cage so it squeals like an ungreased mill wheel. Gervais grips slats, powdered fingers whitening further. Below a fishwife hawks justice bread. Day-old heels perfect for throwing. She sells out in minutes. Your cloak brushes feathers from rooster verdicts still drifting about. Memory of animal court collides with today's airborne baker. A bellman announces terms. The baker must remain aloft until midday sun slides past steeple, enduring jeers and the occasional carbohydrate projectile. If he confesses loudly that he pinched Christ's ounce, his sentence shortens by 1 rotation of the town clock. The crowd murmurs. Some want contrition, others prefer prolonged entertainment. Quirky tidbit. Certain towns tied loaves of correct weight to the cage floor so spectators could feel proper heft before pitching. Think medieval consumer education meets dodgeball. Gervais gathers courage and attempts apology, but a wayward wry heel smacks cage, drowning words in laughter. He tries again, louder, voice cracks under echo of rattling timbers. You catch fragments, forgive, misscaled weights, hunger greed, a cooper beside you scoffs. Greed smells like yeast too long proofed, then wings a crust that misses and lands in a basket of figs. Light joke bubbles from your lips. At least his sales go up, bread's flying off the shelves. The cooper chuckles, wiping fig juice from sleeve. Historians still argue whether airborne humiliation actually fixed fraud or simply created spectacle. Some guild records note dramatic improvement in loaf weight after high-profile cages, while others record repeat flyers who treated suspensions as occupational hazard. Evidence tricky. Parchment ledgers list both compliance gains and continued creative shrinking. High above, pigeons circle, intrigued by newcomer sharing their altitude. One lands on cage roof, eyeing baker's cap like potential nest lining. Gervais shouts, shakes bars. Pigeon flutters off, dropping surprise onto constable's hat below. Crowd howls, schadenfreude layered thicker than lard in pie crust. 2 hours crawl by. Sun edges higher, warming cage wood. Gervais sweats, flour paste streaking cheeks. You note his measuring rod, meant to symbolize fair trade, now clacks against slats like guilty metronome. Constables periodically jostle rope to keep basket swinging. Motion sickness adds flavor to punishment. A young scribe sketches silhouette for broadsheet Crooked Craftsman Chronicles. Monetizing moment. As steeple shadow kisses market fountain. Bellman offers final chance. A full-throated confession yields early descent. Gervais swallows pride, belts out admission. this time amplifying with shopper's funnel borrowed from spice stall. His words echo, "I robbed the hungry of their crumb." Murmurs shift to applause, even fishwife nods approval. Business concluded. Rope unwinds. Cage lowers slow as dripping honey. On touchdown, constables unlatch door, helping wobbling baker to steady ground. Knees buckle but he's upright. The alderman steps forward with wooden rule, thwacks it lightly against Gervais's palm, ceremonial reminder, then hands him a weighted test loaf to carry for a week, public declaration of penance. Shoppers disperse into rhythms of produce, haggling and gossip exchange. You linger, fingering crumb-dusted cloak hem. A child tugs your sleeve, offering remaining justice bread slice. You accept, bite, crumb dense but filling. Irony tastes hearty. The child giggles, sharing rumor that next week's cage may host a candlemaker who trimmed wicks too short. Variety show continues. You stroll past bakery where apprentices scrub boards, weighing dough on brass scales, newly polished to mirror finish. Gervais, still queasy, instructs. Add pinch more flour, no half measures. Lesson etched deeper than any brand. You note mental callback to birch stripes. Pain calibrates honesty when coin falters. Return path leads past Culper's workshop. He sands fresh staves for oil barrels, nodding your direction. Shame, flute smith passes, whistles off-pitch tune, joking he could teach Gervais new business model. Flying concerts with free breadcrumbs. Back in chamber, you shake breadcrumb shower from cloak, watching them scatter across rush floor like seeds of reform. You brew chamomile, scribble diary, crooked baker cage, flying fraud deterrent, consumer activism via thrown crusts. Underline, sensation meets calibration, bread weight versus moral heft. Insert crumb in margins, silly but sensory memory. Lavender water wash clears flour dust from hands. Scent mingles with yeast lingering in hair. You smile at thought of pigeons policing measurements. Picture lute-strung Lady Aveline, humming scales to Gervais's rod clack. Town symphony of past punishments intertwining. Blankets call. You lie back, imagining gentle swaying like cage slowed to cradle tempo. No projectiles, only dream loaves rising perfectly within soul's oven. Breathing evens, market din recedes to faint rustle. Sleep claims you, crumbs memory dissolving into soft dough of night. Mid-morning trumpets blare from the castle bailey, their brass throats summoning you toward a spectacle that mixes architecture with aerobic economics. You descend the outer stair and spot it immediately. An immense wooden treadwheel, think hamster wheel scaled for desperate humans, anchored beside the unfinished western tower. Two sweating debtors trudge inside its ribs, bare feet padding boards polished smooth by countless laps. Each step winds a rope coiled around an axle, lifting heavy stone blocks skyward for masons perched on scaffolds above. Welcome to treadwheel justice, where overdue taxes fuel literal uphill labor. A foreman with quill-tucked cap beckons onlookers closer, eager to showcase his walking crane. Sunlight filters through wheel slats, striping the men inside with alternating light and shade, living sundial marking penance in footsteps. Mainstream historical fact. By the 12th century, large treadwheels powered hoists at major cathedral and castle sites across Europe. Records from Château de Guédelon, Canterbury Cathedral mention prisoners or hired labourers turning wheels, but some jurisdictions used indebted townsfolk as temporary power sources. It saved coin on oxen and reminded citizens that debts have gravity, quite literally. The foreman unfurls parchment ledger, listing each walker's arrears. First debtor, Simon the Chandler, owes 10 shillings for lamp oil levy shortfalls. Second, Mathilde the seamstress, borrowed guild funds to buy imported silk but failed to repay. They agreed to walk until their energy credit reaches debt value, an hour per shilling, plus rest breaks logged as interest. You count their damp footfalls, rhythm equal parts resignation and determination. Quirky tidbit, engineers sometimes piped flute-like whistles into axle, so each rotation produced musical chirps, turning labor into slow carnival organ. This wheel lacks music, only creaks accompany glistening brows. You step onto viewing platform where a clerk records revolutions with tally beads. He claims 40 rotations hoist 1 ton of stone. Average debtor clocks 200 per morning shift. Historians still argue whether treadwheel duty hastened debt repayment or merely exploited cheap manpower. While masquerading as moral instruction, some manorial roles show cleared balances, yet personal diaries describe knees permanently weakened, forcing alms dependence later. A mason above shouts for lift foreman. Signals. A third debtor, young Thomas caught forging fishing licenses, joins inside, weight balancing wheel anew. With 3 aboard, pace smooths, rope groans, then stone block ascends, dangling like a reluctant cloud. Light joke bubbles from your lips to woman beside you. That's what I call interest accruing in real time, upward only. She snorts, adjusting cap, eyes pitying yet intrigued. Sudden slip. Matilda's foot finds slick patch. She stumbles, knees hitting plank, wheel lurches, stone sways. Foreman barks, a lever clicks. Wooden brake wedges spokes, halting assembly. He dashes up ladder, offers rag soaked in vinegar to cool her bruised shin. Mercy, albeit efficiency motivated, healthy walkers keep schedule. Brake logged, interest ticks. While brake holds, masons tether stone to scaffold. You peer into wheels hollow, noting carved initials, crude prayers, even tally scratches chronicling shifts long past. One reads paid in sweat, free in soul. Another adds smaller script, but soul still owes rent. The irony is not lost on you. Debtors resume. Wheel creaks back to life. Foreman hands Simon small leather pouch filled with parched peas, calories without cost. He munches mid-stride, cheeks puffing like bellows. Overhead, crows perch on crane arm, cawing judgment. Breeze carries scent of fresh mortar mixing with sweat musk. Sensory cocktail both industrious and intimate. Around noon, a monk arrives holding shallow bowl of barley water. He chants blessing. Ladle sips to walkers through slat gaps. Hydration counts toward health ledger, he claims. Church ensures punishment stops shy of martyrdom. Yet you note how Thomas gulps greedily, water trickling along collarbone, momentarily washing dust lines. Foreman unlocks side hatch for rotation change. 2 new debtors step in. Miller's teenage son, grain tithe dodge, and an innkeeper's niece, unpaid license. Simon and Mathilde shuffle out, legs jelly, faces drained but relieved. A scribe marks credits cleared. Simon still owes 2 shillings. He'll return tomorrow. Mathilde's balance satisfied. She smiles weakly, debtless yet limping. You descend to speak with her. She laughs hoarsely. Silk never felt this heavy on shoulders. She vows to stitch for Noble's double time, anything but wheel. You squeeze birch-striped arm in solidarity, sensing bruise blooming beneath sleeve. To illustrate contrast, Foreman guides you beneath scaffold where free labourers push lighter capstan, using handspikes, earning daily wage. Their whistles carry jaunty tune. Difference between penalty and payment rings clear. Afternoon sun angles low, casting spokes shadows in hypnotic spin across courtyard wall. You jot mental notes, mechanical details. Oak hub, iron bands. Human heartbeat. Pace slows after 40 laps. Debt ledger system woven with morality. Light joke aside, wheel underscores that medieval economies literally ran on repentance. Returning to manor, you feel phantom treadmill under feet. Heartbeat sinking to imaginary spokes. Diary opens. Quill scratches. Treadwheel justice. Debts measured in vertical feet. Stone crane banker. Add bullet. Breaks as interest. Vinegar rag healthcare plan. Underline historian's debate line. Lavender rinse clears mortar dust. Tickle from nostrils. Candle glow flickers like tiny crane lamp. You stretch calves, sympathy workout, and settle into bed. Imagined wheel hum lulls senses. Rotation smoothing into lullaby. Arc. Breath deepens. In dreams you step onto airborne plank only to find it lifts burdens rather than stones. Sleep ascends, gentle, debtless. Smoke from the castle. Smithy curls skyward in wavering ribbons, and before you even step through the arch you can taste iron on the back of your tongue. Today's spectacle abandons vegetables and barrels for something far more primal. The ordeal by hot iron, a test that claims to let God himself render the verdict. You follow the crowd into the chapel cloister, where torchlight bounces off polished candlesticks and a single iron bar glows in the hearth like a captive sunset. The accused stands barefoot on rush-strewn flagstones. Ilar, a honey-voiced spinster rumored to have stolen a jeweled brooch from the baron's lady. Ilar insists a magpie snatched it through the window, but gossip says her purse jingled suspiciously that afternoon. No witness, no court magpie, so the court has invoked the divine waystation. If her hands blister grievously after carrying the iron, she must be guilty. If they heal clean within 3 days, heaven has cleared her name. Mainstream historical fact. Ordeals by hot iron or boiling water were common in early high medieval Europe, codified in church canons. Clergy blessed the iron and bandages, framing the burn as a holy lie detector. In 1215, the Fourth Lateran Council famously banned clerical participation, nudging ordeals out of fashion. But years before and after, small baronies like this clung to the glow. A priest sprinkles holy water, chanting Latin verses that echo through vaulted nave. You notice his eyes drift toward the glowing rod with caution. He'll bless it, not touch it. 2 altar boys place a narrow path of 3 fresh-cut fir branches on the floor. Ayla must walk 9 paces, carrying the iron, then set it on an anvil before bandaging. Quirky tidbit. Folklore claims fir needles ward demons of infection, saving honest skin from suppurating. Skeptics call it wishful housekeeping. The smith lifts the bar with tongs, lays it on stone a heartbeat to steady his grip, then hands it to the priest. The priest murmurs final prayer, palms nowhere near heat. Finally, the rod is presented to Ayla. Her face pales, but she extends hands, wrapping fingers round iron with surprising steadiness. Perhaps rehearsed resolve, perhaps adrenaline's merciful numb. A hush blankets chapel. Even candles seem to hold breath. Ayla steps onto first fir branch. Sizzle rises, a flesh-iron duet. She moves slow but steady. 1, 2, 3 paces. Audience flinches. You catch scent of singed rosemary from her shawl fringe touching iron. Halfway point, she stumbles. A gasp skitters across pews. Light joke slips unbidden in your mind. Hot cross palms, but you muzzle it. Respect outranking humor for once. Final pace. She deposits iron on anvil. A clang that rings like cracked bell. 2 nuns dart forward, wrapping her hands in linen steeped in comfrey and honey. The bandages steam faintly as heat dissipates. Priest seals gauze with wax stamp, tampering void's verdict. Ella exhales, shoulders slumping, eyes shimmering not with tears but something fiercer, a hope welded to agony. Historians still argue whether healers secretly pre-treated honest defendants' hands with special salves that lessened burns, effectively rigging God's vote. Some chronicles mention thin membranes of pig bladder as heat shield. Others insist results were purely chance and pain tolerance. Either way, the baron's lady watches intently. You can feel her suspicion hover like hawk. Chapel doors burst open. A steward rushes, breathless, holding the missing brooch. A kitchen boy found it wedged in Eve, where indeed a thieving magpie nested. Gasps ripple. Priest raises brow heavenward. Part relief, part vindication. Erla, hearing this, laughs a short incredulous bark, then cradles wrapped hands against chest. The baroness blushes, stammers apology. She orders valet to escort Ella to healer's cottage for wine and salve. Crowd murmurs approval. Some cross themselves. Grateful justice arrived before blisters manifest too deeply. You exhale tension. You didn't realize you'd been holding. Shoulders finally drop. Priest declares iron ordeal complete. Bar quietly returned to hearth to soften back into dull red. You note how swiftly narrative flipped. Minutes earlier, chapel air thick with accusation. Now it hums with humility. Lesson. Someone jokes your single allotment permitted, that the magpie deserves its own trial, preferably before roasting spit. Laughter gentle, cathartic. Outside, dusk dusts courtyard in rows. You follow healer's cart carrying Ella. She winces with each cobble jolt but smiles through grit. Healer unwraps bandages halfway, applying cool aloe paste. Wounds shallow, mostly scorch on surface. Perhaps fir needles aided. Perhaps providence. Perhaps secret pig bladder trick, unknown to onlookers. You'll never truly know. You linger near smithy, watching iron fade from red to ember to dull grey. The verdict's afterglow. Smith quenches bar in water trough. Hiss mimics quiet applause. He remarks the rod has seen 5 ordeals this year, fewer than last. Maybe word spreads that magpies, mules and faulty scales might save or doom an innocent faster than fire. Diary beckons. Back in chamber you pen. Hot iron ordeal. Faith, heat and unexpected bird witness. Add line, healing window. 3 days. Council ban, centuries later. Underline, historians debate over secret salves versus divine medicine. Lavender water dabbed on brow. Cools your own empathy burn. Candlelight flickers reminiscent of iron's first glow. Tame and distant. You slide into bed feeling weight of day. Less than weight of that bar. Hands clench instinctively. You relax them, imagining comfrey sweetness. Breath slows to cooled iron's sigh. Outside, magpie caws from tower roof, as if offering encore testimony. You smile in dark, letting birds call twine with memory, until both soften to hush. Sleep arrives. Verdict final. Rest is granted. Dawn's pale hush hasn't even faded from the rooftops when a sharp cry, perjurer to the square, echoes like a trumpet blast down the narrow lanes. You tug on your cloak, wondering which story you're about to collect for tonight's bedtime confessional. Following the commotion, you reach a modest scaffold set beside the Guildhall steps. 2 constables stand guard over a peculiar iron contraption that glints like a morbid bit in some giant's bridle collection. It's the false witness bridle, a muzzle fitted with inward-facing studs positioned to jab any tongue daring enough to wag a lie. Today's reluctant wearer is Godfrey of the Granary, a grain factor who only yesterday swore under oath that his carts never skirt toll at the East Gate. Unfortunately for him, 3 teamsters and a suspiciously well-fed toll clerk just testified otherwise. So the court has opted for the mouth's version of stocks. Lock his jaw to buy a little medieval silence while teaching a long-lasting lesson in truthful speech. The bridle resembles a set of iron reins attached to a cage that hugs the head. Its pièce de résistance is a tongue plate studded with a single blunt spike intended to press lightly against the offender's tongue. 1 careless syllable equals instant pain, turning fibs into forked mistakes. Mainstream historical fact. Variants of the scolds bridle targeted perjury and slander. Legal rolls from 16th century Scotland describe Lear's bridles whose interior wedges left welts that lingered for days, a kind of oral watermark of dishonesty. 2 beadles guide Godfrey onto a small platform. One buckles the headpiece snug, while the other fits a padlock beneath the chin. You notice a detachable plate inscribed Veritas Vitae, Truth of Life, riveted above the brow as public service announcement. A hush falls as the clerk unfurls verdict parchment. His voice quavers. It's early yet, but he announces Godfrey will parade from Guildhall to Grainyard and back in total silence. Any attempt to speak, sing or even hum reduces his fine payment option by half and extends bridal time another hour. At first Godfrey merely glares, eyeing the brass handbell the clerk intends to ring with every step, because humiliation apparently travels best with background percussion. The procession lurches forward. You fall in behind, curious to observe how a man communicates without words when a spike punishes vowels. Godfrey's shoulders tense each time the bell peals, but he keeps lips parted just enough to avoid additional pressure. Merchants along the lane burst from doorways to watch, some wielding ledgers like fans to hide smiles. A candlemaker tosses him a wax stub, perhaps a pun on wax eloquent. Godfrey manages a bow without scraping tongue. You can almost hear the internal monologue. Think quiet thoughts. Quirky tidbit. One chronicler reports perjurers sometimes pre-numbed tongues with strong anise alcohol, hoping to dull the spike's bite. Courts quickly banned the practice, making offenders gargle cold vinegar to restore sensitivity. Halfway to the Grainyard, a ragged dog joins parade, barking enthusiastically at the strange iron headpiece. Godfrey flinches. Spike taps tongue. He winces but stifles cry. The crowd awes at canine cameo. Light joke slips from your lips to a passing wool dyer. Even dogs can sniff out tall tales. She laughs, dye-stained hand covering mouth. At the grain yard, constables halt so townsfolk loading barley can inspect. One miller jabs fun. Wish that bridle fit the alderman's mouth come tax season. Laughter ripples. Historians still argue whether public gag punishments reduced false testimony or simply nudged liars toward new creative outlets. Cryptic gestures, signet ring codes, or bribery upstream. Church sermons praised bridles as God's filter. Some scholars note court dockets for perjury dipped, but bribery complaints rose, a moral seesaw. Godfrey stands still as clerk records time on wax tablet, sweat beads on his brow. You imagine iron warming under rising sun, heat radiating down cheeks. A nun slips between guards, dabbing his forehead with lavender-soaked cloth, small mercy reminiscent of dunking stool blankets. She mutters, "May truth set you free," then retreats. Return journey begins. Children mimic silence by pressing fingers to lips, then burst into giggles. Godfrey's eyes soften. Perhaps he realizes future anecdotes will star him as walking caution sign. Passing the tavern, you spy Hobble Tom rehearsing scales, this time perfectly pitched. Shame flute therapy apparently worked. You silently commend the musician's redemption arc. Near Church Square, breeze stirs parchment edicts posted there. Stocks roster, baker's cage repair, next whipping tree schedule. Your mind snags callback. Iron gag echoes brank parade, but with pain internal rather than comedic facade. You wonder which felt worse, wearing donkey ears or enduring constant spike reminder. Different day, same moral architecture. Control the offending organ with tailored device. Clerk rings bell in final flourish outside Guildhall. A cooper marks end time on sundial. Constables unlock padlock as bridle loosens. Godfrey exhales a groan, half gratitude, half pain. Spike leaves small red indentation on tongue, visible proof though not life-threatening. The reeve holds out fine ledger. Godfrey drops 2 shillings, fulfilling remainder of sentence. He tries first words, a hoarse apology. I spoke more weight off my carts than off my conscience. The crowd nods, apology accepted. 2 apothecary assistants arrive with chamomile rinse. Godfrey swishes gingerly. Bloom of relief crosses his cheeks. Clerk stores bridle on iron rack beside shame flute. Shared wardrobe for mouth misdeeds. You note in diary margin later. Town's oral correction closet. Perhaps the smith crafts interchangeable modules. Spike plate for lyre. Flute reed for tonal torture. As crowd disperses, you approach Godfrey, asking if lesson sticks. He licks sore tongue, murmuring, "Silver weighs less than lies in throat. I'll pay gate toll next time." Insight heavy. You jot mental quote for tonight. Back in chamber, you dab lavender water along own tongue. Not necessary, but empathetic ritual. Diary opens. False witness bridle. Tongue spike justice. Bell paced procession. Lavender mercy. Underlined scholarly debate about effectiveness versus bribery shift. Outside, sun climbs. Craftsman hammer. Children chase hoop. Magpie. Yes, that one dives through sky. You close shutters. Shading room for afternoon rest. Silk pillow cool. Tongue unpinched. You sigh. Grateful to speak or silence at will. Thoughts taper into gentle hum. Soon sleep drifts near. Promising dreams of iron turn to harmless reeds by dawn's forgiving fire. A grey veil of drizzle drapes the town when the mellow clank of the great warning bell rolls over the rooftops, its bronze throat summoning not communal worship but communal farewell. You pull your cloak tighter, following the echo toward the southern gate where a curious rite of banishment unfolds. Exile by bell. No stocks, no splinters, no iron spike against a tongue this time. Instead, the punishment is permanent distance, escorted by resonant shame. Near the gatehouse stands the town crier in scarlet coat, a handbell dangling at his hip like a chatty pendulum. Beside him waits the condemned, a travelling merchant named Roderick, who, according to aldermen, was caught passing shaved coins and counterfeit seals. Counterfeiting is no petty loaf lightning. It threatens every purse in reach. The sentence, expulsion from town and market, backed by the tolling of St. Bartholomew's bell, a sound that declares him persona non grata to any who hear it. Mainstream historical fact. Many medieval municipalities declared permanent banishment for coin clippers, arsonists, and serial thieves. Prominent gateways bore bells rung during expulsions, serving as sonic boundary lines. A 14th century York ordinance states, "Let the clamour of iron warn each parish that the miscreant be driven forth and given no quarter inside walls." Some bells were blessed by clergy so that every note doubled as spiritual shoo-away order. The crier lifts his handbell first, striking 3 crisp rings, then announces charges in rolling cadence, words bouncing against rain-slick stone. "Hear ye, Roderick son of Malden, for debasing his grace's coin, is banished beyond parish stones, never to trade within these walls, until Jubilee grants mercy." Roderick keeps head bowed, cloak heavy with drizzle, a small pack strapped to back, all the belongings town law allows. You notice around his neck a rope from which dangles a wooden placard carved with the symbol of clipped coin edges. Quirky tidbit, some towns painted these placards bright yellow or red. Law claimed the colour kept evil spirits from following the exiled soul. Others call it simple branding, so distant bailiffs recognized repeat offenders. Here it's raw cedar, recently carved. Rain raises the grain, giving symbol a throbbing halo. Torch bearers flank the procession despite daylight, their flames sputtering in moist air. At a nod, the gate warden pulls a cord. High above, St. Bartholomew's bell swings into motion. Its voice is deeper than the handbell's chatter, a sonorous boom that rattles pigeons from eaves. Every toll punctures drizzle, each clang announcing Roderick's steps as he passes under the portcullis. You fall in line with a cluster of onlookers trailing at respectful but curious distance. Light joke stirs, softly to fellow observer clutching wool shawl. At least he's getting a soundtrack for the journey. Beats walking in silence. She huffs a half laugh, rain dripping off her hood. Humour fades beneath the bell's gravity. Beyond the walls, the path slants downhill to an old milestone, the bandstone, carved with intertwined snakes, marking edge of township jurisdiction. Roderick must cross it before bell ceases, or constables drag him farther and lengthen exile radius. Rain turns path muddy, his boots slip, nearly toppling him into cart ruts. A constable steadies him, merciful because supervising guards want bell duty finished before supper. As they walk, crier rings handbell at steady intervals, counterpart to distant bronze peals. Jewel bells weave a dissonant duet, high brittle tings underpinned by throat-deep gongs. Scholars debate acoustics. Some argue overlapping frequencies amplified public memory of crime. Others say addition of small bell let nearby folk hear if great bell's voice was muffled by wind. Historians still argue whether sonic shaming was more deterrent than corporal pain. Surviving court petitions reveal banished individuals often tried bribing bell ringers to mute clangs early. Yet town chronicles celebrate the ritual's cleansing. Halfway to Bandstone, they pause at Crossroads Shrine. Tradition dictates condemned receives final blessing, if he requests. Roderick rasps something, perhaps prayer, perhaps resignation, and kneels. A passing monk recites psalm, rain beading on Tunser. The bell continues, indifferent to absolution. In that hush you catch peripheral details. Wild flowers torn by hooves, brook swelling from morning storm, and a magpie once again because these birds seem drawn to every dramatic chapter of your week. It hops along wall, cackling chatter as if critiquing ceremony, avian chorus to bronze and brass. You whisper to rain, "Mind your silver feathers, friend," a callback to hot iron swindle. Procession resumes. Children stomp puddles at safe distance, counting bell strokes. Some claim if they reach 20 before exiled man clears Bandstone, bad luck spreads to market stalls. Superstition layering atop civic law. At last Bandstone looms. Bell echoes slower now. Each gap lengthens, suspense heavy as wet wool. Roderick crosses carved snakes. Constables halt, unclip placard from his neck, and toss it onto roadside yew. Symbol stays, man goes. The great bell sounds one final boom, then stills, rope swinging free. Silence rushes in, broken only by rain tapping hedges. Constables hand Roderick's small pouch, travel ration of oatcakes, and point southeast toward distant Millbridge, next jurisdiction's border. He nods mutely, trudges downhill until mist swallows cloak. No cheers, no jeers, Only hush as townsfolk realize world's boundaries shrank by one soul. You linger at Bandstone, tracing snake relief slick under fingers. Carver-etched scales precisely. Some erode, others hold sharp. Perhaps like reputations. Some crimes weather away, others remain jagged. You pluck sprig of yew, tuck into cloak as quiet reminder. Voice carries consequences, but so does coin clip. Back through gate, atmosphere lighter. Vendors reopen shutters. Bell silence invites commerce. Homper. Crier wipes handbell dry, hangs it by desk until next exile. You catch him muttering that drizzle always dampens acoustics' professional pride. Diary welcomes new ink. Exile by bell sonic boundary. Cedar placard, bandstone snakes. Under bullet rain dampened acoustics. Magpie omnipresent witness. Scholars debate deterrence. Classic callback inserted. Mule not present, bell weighed enough. Lavender water dabbed to nape. Warms beneath hearth glow. You sit by window, listening to residual bell memory faint in ear canals, as though bronze still hums inside skull. Rain tapers to hush. Outside, evening candles dot lanes like scattered coins, true weight unshaved. Tired limbs surrender to mattress. You nestle under wool, throw bell echo fading into soft pulse. Breath steadies. Mind drifting toward dream roads, where exile might find fresh market, fair coin and kinder bells. Sleep knells gently. Day's toll done. You step out on a brisk afternoon expecting routine bustle, carts, gossip, the occasional pie fight, but instead find Market Street transformed into a walking tapestry of Garis colours. Picture a rainbow that crashed headfirst into a tailor's scrap pile, then decided to stroll around town showing off every stitch. At the centre of this vivid spectacle toddles Mistress Clarion, once the most fashionable cloth merchant for 3 shires, now draped in compulsory shame fabric, a patchwork smock sewn from mismatched remnants, vermilion velvet, pea green fustian, orange brocade, every hue clashing like dueling trumpets. And it doesn't end there. Her pointed slippers are trimmed with tin bells that jingle ridicule with each step. Welcome to punishment number 14. The sumptuary shame parade. Mainstream historical fact. Medieval and early modern Europe policed wardrobe through strict sumptuary laws, reserving furs, silks, and even certain dyes for nobility. England's 1363 statutes fined merchants flaunting velvet or cloth of gold above their class rank. Chronic offenders sometimes faced sartorial humiliation, forced to wear patchwork penance garments, so antics screamed their crime every time sunlight caught the wrong shade of chartreuse. Clarion's misdeed, smuggling bolts of Tyrian purple silk reserved for upper aristocracy, then parading a prototype gown at last month's harvest dance. Nobles gasped louder than roosters on Compline night. Council decided her weave of deception deserved a weave of mortification. They commissioned a journeyman tailor to stitch leftover swatches into a single loud confession, and here she is jingling contrition down the lane. A bell ringer precedes her, clanking rhythm so gawkers notice. Clarion's face reddens brighter than her crimson patch, yet she lifts chin, perhaps determined to repurpose disgrace into performance art. You trail the procession, boots crunching grit, noting how townsfolk react. Weaver apprentices giggle, dyers whistle approval of colour quantity if not harmony, and an old tanner mutters, if fabric could blush, that coat would ignite. Quirky tidbit. Some Italian city-states issued zebra cloaks, stripes of cheap wool and fine silk to merchants caught blending social lines. The wearer resembled a walking ledger of economic hypocrisy. Clarion's smock is similar but louder, dotted with appliqued badges displaying stylized scissors crossed over coin, a tailor's skull and crossbones. The crier stops outside her own boutique, ironically named Clarion's Discerning Silks. Windows now shuttered, sign flipped to inventory seized pending fines. He rings bell thrice, proclaiming law. She must stand 1 hour, greet every passerby with lesson in moderation, then donate illicit silk stock to town almshouse for shroud cloth. Light joke drifts from your lips toward a baker balancing trays. At least the burial sheets will look lavish, going out in style. The baker snorts, nearly dropping loaf. Clarion begins her mandated speech. voice forced bright despite color chaos. Good neighbors, see what vanity stitches, may your pockets stay deeper than your dye vats. Tin bells punctuate each phrase. Historians still argue whether such public textile embarrassment truly curbed fashion crimes or simply inspired subtler smuggling. Wool Guild minutes show black market dye sales persisted, yet chroniclers note decline in eye-searing ostentation after big parades. A gust catches smock hem, revealing lining of plain sackcloth. Council insisted luxurious scraps only face outward, so discomfort hides underneath glamour. Poetic justice scratching skin. Clarion winces as burlap rubs thighs, yet she soldiers on. Each jingle echoing line about humility threads stronger than silk. Children cluster, counting patches. Some guess 50, others swear 100. You conduct quick visual tally, 20 distinct fabrics at least, all shouting for attention like minstrels fighting lute solos. The priest who oversaw hot iron ordeal wanders by, nods approval at non-violent yet soul-piercing remedy. He sprinkles handful of lavender petals over Clarion's shoulders, symbolic washing of vanity. Petals stick to velvet squares like tiny exclamation points. Halfway through hour, drizzle returns. Those petals now smell marvelous, mixed with wool steam. Clarion's spectacle becomes mobile potpourri. A nearby dyer jokes he'll market rain-blessed lavender tartan next quarter. Commerce, forever opportunist. Crowd energy shifts from mockery to carnival. Some begin dancing a patchwork reel around Clarion. She hesitates, then joins. Bells chiming syncopation. Parade morphs into impromptu fashion show of humility. You spin once cloak swirling modest earthy brown, suddenly thankful for unassuming dye. Bell finally clangs dismissal. Clarion curtsies. Relief washing colour from cheeks yet not garment. Crier announces she must wear smock for one full market week. Dawn to Vesper with bells attached. But he allows her to trade tin for copper if she pays extra fine. Sound upgrade optional. She declines. Maybe lesson already rings loud enough. Town officers unlock boutique. Escort her inside under supervision to box remaining purple bolts. You peek through door. Bundles of violet shimmer under lantern. Destined for burial linens. Lavish send-off for souls who perhaps never wore silk alive. Outside, a seamstress turns to you, eyes glinting. "Scraps for quilt?" she asks. You nod, waste not. She gathers stray bits fallen during dance, stuffing them into basket like confetti memories. You stroll home as drizzle lifts, streets gleaming patchwork of puddles mirroring earlier spectacle. Diary waiting you jot. Sumptuary, shame fabric, garish patch smock, bells, humility hour, burial silk donation. Add historian line. Public colour as deterrent versus smuggling statistics. Underline moment patchwork dance turned scorn into community festivity. Lavender water, again hero, washes away faint dye specks. Flick during reel. Candlelight reveals my own garment. Plain wool, honest coin's worth. Comfort settles, extravagance pang replaced by glad anonymity. Blanket draped, you listen. Distant tin bells faint under night chorus. A lullaby of penance receding into calm. Breath slows, eyelids find soft closure. In dream, fabric patches rearrange into quilt covering entire town. Each square story stitched with lesson silk can soothe, cloth can shame, humility ties strongest seam. Sleep now, patchwork peaceful and warm. First light slips across roof slates like a silent pardon, and the town summons you to its final rite of redemption, the sunrise penance pilgrimage. A horn sounds low, unhurried, calling yesterday's offenders to gather at the east gate barefoot, each carrying a humble token of contrition. The miller who faced the stocks totes a sack of honest weight flour. Lady Aveline clutches her lute, strings retuned to sober pitch. Mistress Clarion drapes her patchwork smock over one arm, bells mute but still visible. And there you are, purely an observer, invited to walk alongside them toward the hilltop shrine of St. Cuthbert the Mild. The sky swirls palest peach as you step onto the dewy road. Grass kisses your ankles, cool and forgiving. Every penitent must walk 12 furlongs, about an hour's march to the weather-worn chapel, where townsfolk believe the saint once tended a leper's wounds with nothing but river water and thyme. Mainstream historical fact: medieval penance often included prescribed pilgrimages to local shrines. Parish registers from 14th century England document distances matched to severity of sin. Thieves walked 6 miles, oath-breakers 8, murderers might trek barefoot clear to Canterbury. Today's group spans offences minor to memorable, yet the council settled on one communal journey, a spiritual bulk discount if you will. The procession begins with rhythmic hush step, hush step. No talking allowed until halfway marker. Silence sharpens senses, the whoosh of kestrel wings overhead, the crunch of gravel under Lady Aveline's velvetless toes, the faint jingle Clarion's tin bells still make when breeze tugs her smock. You notice Hobble Tom cradling a fiddle tucked into sackcloth, punishment complete, but penance voluntary. He hopes to play something pure at the shrine, redeeming those off-key nights. Quirky tidbit: some pilgrims in France sewed tin badges shaped like scallop shells onto hats to prove journey accomplished. This town issues tiny wooden bells. You see one pinned to each cloak, painted pale blue. At the 3rd mile, path tilts uphill beneath an archway of gold-leafed oaks. The crier raises hand, allowing whispered speech. You trade murmured encouragement with Lady Aveline, who winces at pebble-digging heel but swears the pain levels pride better than any sermon. Half-joke forms: at least we'll save on shoeshine. She chuckles softly, nearly stumbling yet steadying herself by humming a measured scale, CDE, humility's cadence. Laughter dissipates into crisp air, even jokes tread lightly here. Farther along, the old whipping tree appears beside the road, its birch ribbons fluttering like prayer flags. Simon the chandler pauses, presses palm to bark where rods once bit his back, then steps on, shoulders squared. You feel subtle convergence of earlier punishments: stock splinters, brank iron, dunking chill, baker's cage sway, all funneling into these final strides. Historians still argue whether communal pilgrimages successfully sealed moral lessons or merely offered public relations varnish. Monastic chronicles praise collective catharsis, while manorial audits claim some repeat offenders treated walks as social outings. Today, sincerity feels tangible in every barefoot wince. The last ascent snakes through wind-swept heather. Sunrise flares full, gilding chapel stone. The bell from yesterday's exile tolls one mellow note behind you, a sonic push up the slope. At summit, shrine doors stand open, carved tympanum depicting Saint Cuthbert handing bread to beggar. Inside, wax candles greet penitents with honey fragrance. The priest from hot iron ordeal waits, bowl of thyme-infused water in hands. One by one, walkers kneel. Priest anoints souls with cool drops, salve for journey's sting. He prays, may steps you take henceforth tread truth. Hobble Tom is last. He lifts fiddle, plays gentle air so pure even magpie perched on roof peak quiets. Notes float over kneeling figures, weaving final ribbon around week's tapestry of punishments. Aveline's shoulders relax. Clarion sets patchwork smock at altar rail, offering its cacophonous hues to saint's discretion. Miller tips flour onto chapel floor, small heap to show honest ounce. Priest promises it will bake communion loaves. Ceremony concludes. Priest invites pilgrims to share simple breakfast of barley porridge and herbs. You sit on low bench, spooning warmth into body, while lavender smoke from tiny censer drifts across rafters. Talking aloud now, conversation gentle, free of jeer, edge. Godfrey, the recent bridal victim, thanks Miller for flour that thickens porridge. They share faint smile, a bridge mended by miles. Meal finished. Priest dismisses group. Each returns downhill lighter, not for having lost weight, but for dropping burdens at hilltop. You pocket wooden bell badge offered to observers, emblem of journey's empathy. Vibrant sun climbs higher, grass dries under rays, easing return walk. Back within walls, daily bustle resumes. Buyers haggle, blacksmith hammer sings, yet attitudes feel subtly tuned. The baker weighs loaves twice, toll collector waves cart through, then counts coins thrice. Even the magpie appears less larcenous, preening on well roof. Whether change endures, time will show. You retire to chamber, Record pilgrimage, sunrise penance pilgrimage, 12 furlongs barefoot, time water balm, wooden bell badge. Underline interplay of earlier punishments, culminating in collective release. Ink dries beside pressed heather sprig. You picked at summit. Shoulders loosen, feet grateful for leather boots again. Candle glows mid-morning, rare diary moment before noon. You breathe in lavender remains, exhale tension. Night will come, but mind already drowses from weeks-long script. You stretch, promising final words of calm soon. Set aside the clang of bells, the crack of birch rods, the hiss of iron cooling on stone. Let those sounds fade like distant thunder after a summer storm, soft enough now to be remembered only as gentle rumble. Feel your shoulders drop, your jaw unclench, each muscle loosening like laces undone at day's end. Imagine yourself on that quiet hilltop after the pilgrimage crowds have gone. The air is cool, scented faintly with thyme and clean earth still moist from morning dew. A hush settles over the empty shrine, broken only by the lazy buzz of a honeybee drifting from blossom to blossom between the worn stone steps. With every unhurried breath, draw in that calm. Let it travel from your lungs to the very tips of your fingers and toes. Picture the wooden bell badge resting in your palm. It's warm from the sun, edges smooth, symbol of lessons learned without shouting. Roll it between thumb and forefinger. Feel its gentle weight anchor you to this still moment. No stocks hold you, no iron presses your tongue. Here silence is a kindness rather than a sentence. A breeze stirs your hair, then stills. Sunlight lowers, bathing chapel walls in amber as birds settle for the night. Each pulse of your heart slows, syncing with the distant cadence of evening crickets starting their steady lullaby. In this softness, forgive yourself any small missteps, the way the town forgave its wanderers after their weary climb. Allow that forgiveness to blanket you like the lightest wool, warm but never heavy. Breathe once more, deeper now. Let eyelids draw closed, thoughts easing into a quiet field where even magpies sleep and no bell needs ringing. Rest, all is well.